We're in Iceland, it is cold, it's winter, it's windy, and this video is a focus stacking for beginners mini tutorial, and it all starts right now. Let's go! Whoa. We're not currently in Iceland, still in isolation here in Germany, but if you like photography, you're gonna like this video. So let's roll that intro. So for those who watch the channel often, you know that I am a videographer and I also work as a travel photographer, but photography is definitely something that I am still learning. And I consider myself a beginner when it comes to Photoshop, especially with blending images and like detailed painting for bracketing and also focus stacking. So I wanted to make a quick video here in the field in Iceland to learn how to focus stack myself and share that process with you, because a few people here in the group were running a photography workshop. Well, Brendan is running a photography workshop. I'm helping document it, and I've sort of snuck away here. I've got a few free minutes to film this vlog. What we're doing is focus stacking for beginners, because I think I've got a really nice image here, nice composition in the field. And what we're looking at is Ísþrótt in South Iceland, and it's the winter, so I've got a nice little piece of ice just down there. That's my foreground interest. 16 to 35 on the USR. We're going to take 3 shots and focus stack them in Photoshop. So I'm recording the back of my frame here so that hopefully it'll make it easier to talk to you about this when we get onto the computer. But essentially this is my composition, and what I'm looking at is a beautiful background up here with Ísþrótt, which is right there, and that's going to be my first image. And then my second image is this midground just right here on the rock, and then my third image is down in the foreground of the actual frozen puddle. And you'll see there's a lot of focused breathing that's happening when I'm this close to the subject. If you can see, it's actually just like right there. It's very overexposed, but it's very close to the camera, so that's why I'm getting a lot of focus breathing between the foreground and the background. But I'm pretty certain that once we get into Photoshop, we'll be able to fix that with a simple auto align. So this is the idea when shooting the focus stack. I've got the 16 to 35 wide angle on the USR, and I've got a 6-stop ND filter on the front and a 2-stop medium soft grad above that, and that's allowing me to get a long exposure on the water. I'm shooting 13-second exposures at f8, and I believe f8 is a pretty good sharpness for this 16 to 35. I'm not exactly sure what the perfect sharpness for this lens is. I should know by now because I've had it for so long, but f8 with those 2 filters on the front is working out really well for what I want. So I'm looking for that long exposure effect of the water in the midground and still getting maybe like a nice kind of hazy cloud in the background of the Ísþrótt mountain. I'm really happy with the 3 images. So what we're gonna do is get inside because I'm freezing, jump on the computer and show you how I can focus stack these, and of course, the final product. It is the next day. We are still in Iceland. I've just traveled south from Ísþrótt and Vesturhorn, staying about 30 kilometers outside of Hof, which is on the south coast of Iceland. And today is extremely windy, super winter storm. There's lots of snow. The visibility is almost nothing. It's actually quite hectic. And if you're looking for a bit more of behind the scenes on what we're experiencing right now, be sure to check out Brendan Vanson's channel because I think he's got a couple of videos already uploaded from Iceland. And I've been filming a lot of that content for his channel, so be sure to go and check that out. But for this video, we're going to now focus stack those images really simply from Lightroom and Photoshop. This is a beginner video and kind of a simple tutorial to show you how I take it from the field into the computer and then edit them up to make a really nice image that's sharp all the way through from your foreground to your background. Apologies about our makeshift studio here, but for those of you who watch the channel often, you know I live nomadic and I'm changing up my location all the time. So this is what we've got for now, and let's jump into Lightroom on my laptop here and I'll show you how I go about this process. All right, so here are the 4 images that I'm going to use for my focus stack, and what we can do is go from the library where you've imported them into the Develop tab, and then what I would do is highlight each one and have the auto sync on, which is down here. And with your raw image here, you can change a couple of things before bringing it into Photoshop. Things I like to change are the white balance, just a touch,
and then maybe even the exposure or a little bit of the contrast. A lot of these changes you can also do in Photoshop, but because you're dealing with raw images, it's probably best to get the most amount of the white balance and even the exposure out from these raw images. And a lot of people also, I mean, I want to take off the chromatic aberration because I'm afraid that up here in the mountains, there was probably a little bit of chromatic aberration happening. Yeah, there it is. You can see it. See that little blue line right up there? I want to get rid of that, so I remove chromatic aberration. That looks much better up in the mountains. And that's it. I mean, this is a simple for beginners tutorial, so I just want to do it really quick and easy. So I've changed a couple of the basic things like the white balance, the exposure, and the contrast, but really not by much. And then I removed chromatic aberration. So now, when all of those 4 images or however many images you want to focus stack have been basically edited in Lightroom, you can go ahead and right click and then go to the edit in and open those as layers in Photoshop. So depending on your laptop and the processing power of your computer, that might take a little while, but they should load into Photoshop looking something like this. Now this is where things get really easy because you've already done a basic edit. So what you want to do is just select all 4 of your images, and how you can do that is by holding down the shift key and going from the top one to the bottom, as you can see that I've done here. Also, they're not in perfect order, but that doesn't actually matter. It's okay. Photoshop is going to figure this out on its own through the algorithm. So what you want to do once you've got all 4 of the images selected and highlighted is go up into the edit and then come down to auto align layers, which is sort of in the middle of your selections. Now, when I go to auto align layers, it's pretty easy to just pick the auto and then press OK, and that might work for you. That's totally fine. You can try that for your first focus stack and see what happens. There's a couple of options below for lens corrections. You've got vignette removal and geometric distortion. Now the one that I would pick is geometric distortion, and from what I've learned via research and experience is that when you're focus stacking and you're changing your focus, even with a set focal length, there tends to be a little bit of focus breathing. And what that is when you say you're focused on your foreground and then you go to focus on your background in autofocus, it might slightly change your focal length. Even with a prime lens, it'll be like by millimeters, but sometimes it's obvious. And what the geometric distortion does is try to use the algorithm of Photoshop to get rid of that focus breathing so that everything, all 4 of those layers are lined up perfectly so that there's no difference in any of the lines or anything from that focus breathing differentiator. So what I'm going to do is turn on the geometric distortion, and instead of having the auto projection, I'm actually going to change mine to perspective because I actually have already done this. I've cheated and tried to do it before filming the video, and the auto came out all strange. So I was like, no auto. We're going to go straight to perspective. So go ahead and choose that option and press OK, and then let Photoshop do its thing. What I'm going to do now is go back up to edit, and don't change anything, keep everything selected, and go to auto blend layers. Now when you auto blend the layers, you want it to be a stack images with the seamless tones and colors and the content aware fill transparent areas all selected. So you don't need to change anything there, just go ahead and press OK. Now once everything has been blended and aligned together, you'll get a merged layer. And what you can do now is actually go back to selecting all of the images, right click, and you can press flatten image, and that'll bring it down to one individual image or layer in Photoshop. So once I've flattened the image and I've got one individual layer and effectively one image really, I can go to File and Save, which will actually bring it back into Lightroom. And then once I've got it in Lightroom, I'm able to do any additional edits or cropping that I want to. So right away I can see there's a bit of a layer overlap on the bottom and the right side, which I don't like. So I'm just going to crop that in a little bit. And I did shoot this slightly wider than normal so that I have the availability to crop in. I'm going to try and see if I can get a nice crop on that. Maybe even a little bit more to the left. That looks pretty good. There we go, that looks nice. I think I can start playing around with more of the colors, but in regard to the sharpness, the mountains look nice and sharp at 100 here. We follow down into the long exposure of the water, which also looks really nice and sharp on those rocks. Then you can see this like foreground middle interest is also just super crisp and really sharp. And then coming down to our most important piece of subject here, the actual ice puddle, which looks a little bit noisy, but I think that actually might just be the texture of the ice if you compare it to the rock here on the left and here on the, here on the left and here on the right. So zooming out of that image, I know that the entire thing is sharp and the focus stack worked perfectly and it looks really, really nice. So all I need to do now is edit a couple minor things with like maybe bringing up some shadows and down some highlights to give it a bit of depth and really change the color a little bit too. And I think it's going to be a pretty fantastic image. So here it is. That is the final product from this focus stacking for beginners tutorial. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments how you do things differently, because I know everybody edits and has a different process for whatever they do. But for me, this is relatively simple in the field. You've got a wide angle, you've got a nice foreground subject, and then a good background as well. You can focus on the background, focus on the midground, focus on the foreground as many times as you like, but I find the magic number is, probably 3 or 4 images. Bring them into Lightroom, do a basic edit, open them in Photoshop, do the auto align, auto blend, save it back into Lightroom, and then you can finish with your final edit touches, a crop, maybe changing the color like I just said, and then you can save it, and voila, there you go. That is focus stacking for beginners. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.